Hi, I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm sitting here with my friend and New York neighbor, Erik Cabetas, who is the founder of Include Security. Erik, how you doing?
Not bad, Ed.
You just walked over here, right?
Yeah, it's one subway stop. It's not too far.
You guys are in Dumbo.
Yeah, down under Manhattan Bridge. Yep.
What a wonderful place to be, right?
It's great, yeah.
It's a very hip place. Now, you have been in software and application and cybersecurity and hacking for a couple decades now, right?
Yeah, it's almost 2 decades.
Tell me about yourself. How'd you get into this sort of thing?
Sure. So I was going to school for material science engineering, and one of the classes they mandated us to take was exploring the internet. And actually in the 90s, that was pretty cutting edge. So I took this class, and one of the things they gave you was a Telnet shell account on a Alpha 264 box. And I thought it was really interesting. I had no idea what I was doing, typing in green text into a black box. And it just kind of like hit that thing in your mind that says, I need to know everything about this. Mm-hmm. So I learned about Unix and protocols and programming, and just kind of continuing to learn. The next evolution was security.
How you figured out RM star means something, right?
Exactly. Well, I think I was reading the man pages, and they all said that there's this thing called root. And I was like, well, what's root? How do I get root? And so then I learned, okay, there's 2 ways to get root. 1, you have the password, and 2, you don't have the password. And I was like, wait, what?
Did the manual say that? That's
it was implied. Yeah,
it was implied.
So yeah, that's how I learned about hacking. Just wanted to learn more commands, wanted to try different things in Unix, and had to figure out a way how to do that. And eventually I just started using local Linux systems and started going down that route.
Yeah, you found your way to Microsoft around that time, didn't you?
Yeah. I worked at out of the IIS-6 team early on. It was a great team that really was one of the first teams at Microsoft to push security, because IIS-5 got really beat up vulnerability-wise. So IIS-6, they decided to really lock it down, and I think there was only 1 public vulnerability that was a remote for IIS-6 versus dozens and dozens for 5. So they really locked it down a lot more than previous versions.
They did a good job in some sense of at least identifying that there was a cultural issue and trying to shift it, the famous Bill Gates
memo. That came out when I was there.
What did you think of that whole thing?
It was definitely a culture shift. So before then, security wasn't even on your top 10 priorities, and now it's top 3. And so it totally changed the whole culture. Microsoft shut down for a week and trained everybody, all developers, on security, and that kind of stuff wasn't heard of at the time. Nobody shuts down all development for a week just to focus on security. That never happened.
Yeah, it's a smart move.
Yeah, I think it's paid off well for them, and dividends over time in the products that they've released. They're always going to have security problems just like everybody else, but I think they have a lot less and a lot lower impact.
Did you think of yourself in those early times, and we'll get to what you're doing now, but did you think of yourself as a hacker at the time? Like, did that term hacker, was that part of your parlance in those days?
Yeah, so for me, hacking is kind of, I mean, everybody nowadays has like different terms for it, but for me,
I think of it as a compliment. Like when somebody calls you a hacker, that's a little different than calling you like a criminal or something. But sometimes people equate it. I think it's wrong, but is that something you identified with in getting into this?
Yeah, I think it was just a concept of somebody who wants to defeat security systems, whether that's for good or for bad or whatever. That's what I was interested in. The way I viewed it personally was these were like puzzles. So me hacking software, writing exploits was like opening up the Sunday New York Times crossword puzzle. Yeah. It was just a very relaxing kind of passive mind activity type of thing to do. So every Sunday I would write an exploit or something, just like somebody would do the New York Times crossword puzzle.
Yeah, these were early times too. It was early 2000s when a lot of people weren't quite sure what the cross product of software and security looked like. You were right at the forefront of that.
Yeah, I was, right time, right place kind of thing. I think that it is totally different today. The term cyber is well entrenched as an industry today. Whereas then it was just like, oh, there's this general information security concept. There weren't university programs. There sometimes were it was a title, but not always.
Yeah. The code quality then versus now, pretty clear difference?
Yeah, so security versus quality, these are two aspects of software systems, and I think back then sometimes security got lumped into the QA role and the general testing role, and it's not as well defined as it is today.
Yeah. Now tell me, so Microsoft, you kind of had a series of other jobs there with some vendors and as a CISO and some other things you were doing, consulting.
Yeah, I worked.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I did consulting for Ernst & Young. I worked in the product space. I worked at Fortify Software. I was really interested in finding vulnerabilities in automated ways, and Fortify is really good at that.
It's a pioneering company in the scanning area, certainly.
For sure, yeah. They are one of the cutting edge of static analysis, and I think now they've gone through 3 or 4 company transitions. They were Hewlett Packard, then Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Now they're Micro Focus. They've bounced around, but they still are on the cutting edge of that world. Yeah. And I did defense for a bit, and the last 7 years I've been doing Include Security, which is a security assessment, software security assessment consulting.
I'm going to get to capture the flag in a minute.
Okay.
But you've got a funny Rudy Giuliani story. Did you teach him something about hacking or security? What was your Rudy Giuliani interaction?
So back in my early 20s, I was working at Ernst & Young, and we had a client-serving advanced security center where we had a bunch of really good network penetrations.
42nd Street and 8th Avenue, right?
Right in Times Square. Yeah. And somehow Ernst & Young and Giuliani Partners kind of had a co-branding thing, and
you were on the same floor.
Yeah,
you go up the elevator, you go this way to Giuliani.
Exactly.
I remember. Yeah.
So you would see Giuliani in the elevator all the time, and he came over to kind of learn about what we did. Yeah. So there was at one point, and I actually have a picture of this somewhere. Where in my early 20s, I taught Rudy Giuliani how to hack using GUI exploit tools, just from a point and click. It was really bad.
Now let's get to something even more interesting than that. You've had some success with Capture the Flag at DEFCON. That is a cool. Yeah. That's a very, very cool contest.
I've been involved in the CTF world almost from the start, since around 2000, 2001, back when there was really the only CTF was DEFCON CTF. Right. There was a war game online, but besides that, it was just 2 things. So there was that one online war game and DEFCON CTF.
I remember.
Nowadays, there's a CTF every single weekend. Every single weekend.
Right. Which is a good thing. But back in the early 2003, you guys were successful.
Yeah, 2003. I was with Team Anomaly, and we did win DEFCON CTF, so that was fun.
That is very elite to win that. Certainly in those days, because to your point, there wasn't as much.
Yeah,
it was a lot of energy.
It was a lot of fun. A lot of custom services, some open source stuff. It was a big mix of things to hack. Yeah. Today, it's much more custom services. Everything's about buffer overflow exploits and memory corruption exploits and things like that. So back then, you might write an overflow exploit, then you might do a SQL injection, then you might do a new type of, one exploit I did was local file inclusion, which today is a very, very common thing. But at the time that we created that exploit technique, no one had publicly ever done an LFI. So we came up with the technique on the fly to write the exploit during the CTF, and the next year everyone's using that technique and writing exploits using LFI. So nowadays it's just well, of course LFI is a technique, but back then it was kind of cutting edge and new.
As cutting edge things go, right?
Yeah.
That's really exciting. Now tell me about Include Security. Let me give my bias here. You've told me about it. It sounds too good to be true. It sounds like a fantastic group. Tell us how it came about. It's about 6-7 years you've been doing it. And
Sure.
What you guys do?
So at my last position, I was kind of on the defense blue team side of the house. Yeah. I ran security for an e-commerce company here in New York. And one of the things I had to do was hire a security consulting company to get a third-party opinion on what our security is, because I wanted to provide my executives with a sense of everything I'm telling you and the vulnerabilities that I'm finding are the correct things.
Yeah. And these folks agree with me.
Right.
Yeah.
So I hired a security consulting company, and well, first I did requests for proposal to 12 different companies. And the whole process, from the RFP to the delivery of the project management, the sales process, the execution of the project, I just wasn't super thrilled with it. So as my tenure at that company came to a close, I said, hey, we should start a company and just have old school hackers that are really good at exploits and really good at finding vulnerabilities, experts only. Let's create a company that's just that, and hopefully if you build it, they will come. So created the company, only old school hackers, really good CTF people, vulnerability identification was kind of our thing, and startups were our initial world. So small companies that are now super large mega platforms today were our first clients 7 years ago. And today, I think our volume of business comes half and half from very large Bay Area tech companies to Series A, Series B Bay Area tech companies.
Yeah.
So we might do a 50,000 person company with 1 million lines of Java, and we might do a 5-person company with 10,000 lines of Python. So it's kind of like a really interesting mix of work and problems that we see.
You do word of mouth marketing for the most part?
Almost all of our work comes from other clients. So at this point, we've done work with over 140 clients.
Wow.
And almost all of it just comes from one client tells another potential client, like, hey, these guys kicked butt for us. You should talk to them.
Am I letting the cat out of the bag with this video here? All of
fun.
a sudden you're going to be deluged with requests? I hope you do.
We'll take it.
Have you ever looked at an application or some software that was hopeless, where you just went, you just sat down the team, the developers, whatever, and said, this cannot be fixed? Has that ever happened?
Kind of. At Include Security, not as much, but in a past role, and I won't get into the specifics of where this was or how it happened, I did an assessment where there was over 10,000 confirmed pre-authentication buffer overflows. 10,000. And I looked.
The same problem over and over again?
It kind of was the same pattern. Yeah, it kind of was the same pattern over and over again, but in very different ways. In like a lot of copy and paste.
Total mess.
So total mess. So when I first saw the results come in, I said, well, these got to be false positives. So I started doing some random sampling. Like every 250 vulns, I'll just write a proof of concept to see if it actually is vuln. All of them were confirmed. And I just realized, like, yes, this is actually 10,000 remotely exploitable buffer overflows in one product. And that was just a...
Oh, no. Let me ask the inverse question.
Yeah.
Have you ever sat down with something and said, you know what? All of my capability and my team, we can't find nothing. You've done a great job. You get an A+++. Great job.
Have found that.
Really?
But never in anything over 10,000 lines of code.
Okay.
Smaller, under 10,000 lines of code products, I have found that they really, really did everything right, and we were kind of the second or third assessment of it. So it was kind of a very mission critical type of smaller piece of software.
So I have a part-time gig over at the Applied Physics Lab, and there's a team that does kind of microkernel work where they do verification, they really dig in, pull out any functionality unnecessary. I have a feeling, these are not huge systems, but these little micro OSs and micro systems, they probably do pretty well in assessment. So question, does smaller imply usually better? Does less code, more to the point, more compact, is that generally a better thing?
Yeah, I think the KISS principle definitely applies in software security. So the more compartmentalized you are, the more straightforward everything is, the easier it is not to screw up.
Yeah.
But in terms of verification, formal verification, I think that's the next level. Like there's this tool called COQ, that a lot of people are using for formal verification now. Just this past year, December 2017 at CCC, there was a really great talk. I forgot who did it. It was a US professor. But his concept is that formal verification is in its early stages, just like assembly eventually led to high-level languages. That formal verification today is just in its infancy, and with better tooling, better interfaces, and the UX as it improves, we'll be able to create smaller compartments of software that are just trusted, reliable systems to build bases on the base of larger software systems.
I hope he or she, I hope that person's right.
Yep.
Because I haven't seen evidence of that too much in commercial products. So can I ask a few like sort of high-level dopey questions?
Sure.
So favorite programming language?
For me personally?
Yeah.
So it's changed over the years. I probably, like the first thing I ever wrote that executed was probably Perl. So at the time I loved Perl, and then then it was PHP, and then it was C, and then it was probably
Python in there somewhere.
No, I'm one of the rare people in the security industry that's not super hyped on Python. Literally 99% of the security industry loves Python more than anything else.
What about Go? Have you played with that language?
So I was just
cool
getting
language, right?
So then I did Ruby for a while, and then today I think Go is the coolest thing out there. Yeah.
We had Brian Kernahan as the keynote at our Tag Cyber event we do every December.
Cool.
So we had an intimate sit down with him, and he was great. Signed copies of his book.
Yeah, I was just researching a couple weeks ago Go Vet and like the static analysis around Go and some of that stuff. It's really interesting what you can do with that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see Go move into the mission critical apps.
So another one of those dopey questions. Are you guys kind of a Mac or a Windows shop or both?
I think we're a mix. I think most of the guys prefer Mac or Linux, but we do have a couple guys.
I should have included Linux in there, right?
Yeah, I would say overall we're probably 40% Mac, 40% Linux, 20% Windows.
Because you have clients that are building Windows apps.
Yeah,
right?
and
so
we have a couple guys that are just like amazing at Windows, breaking Windows, writing fuzzers for Windows, kernel debugging, all of that stuff. So it's kind of the platforms that you hack the most tend to be the platforms that you use the most, or vice versa. It's kind of like.
So another dopey question. I sort of know the answer to this because we were having coffee before, but you'll laugh at the question. Are there any countries that have like some amazing hackers that we don't all know about?
Sure, yeah. We were talking about Argentina.
Argentina, I was surprised by that. We have amazing hackers there, right?
We have a lot of guys on our team from Argentina, and it's we're really proud to work with them. There's something in the water there. They put bits in the water or something, but there's amazing hackers in Argentina, and probably about a third of our team is from Argentina.
That is spectacular.
Yeah.
So last question I'll torture you with. My daughters and girls who code, I'm very committed at the academic level to bringing more women into programming. Do you see it like on your own team? Is it when you pull elites, do you find an equal distribution of men and women, or do we need to do more work to bring young ladies into the business? So
we have interns every year. And we've been lucky to have 2 female interns. But the first one, actually, she didn't like how male-dominated the industry was. And when I said, well, let's get you in the industry, she said, well, kind of how male-dominated it is bothers me, so I'm going to go to another industry. So that kind of bummed me out.
That's a bummer. Yeah, that's terrible.
And the second one, she did join the industry, but more on the federal side of things. So it was good to see that. Include security, we've got folks from all around the world, all creeds and credos and types of folks. Unfortunately, it's not many women. I think currently on the team we only have 2 women, but we're open to anyone who wants to hack with us.
It is something. I think about it a lot. Certainly from an academic perspective, I see a lot of young women in my classes, and boy, do they get scooped up. The consulting firms grab them and say, come on, we hire you. And that's a good thing, but there's certainly not enough of them. So if you're young ladies watching here, get into computing. It's the right thing. Let's talk about future.
Sure.
You tend to be kind of optimistic about sort of cybersecurity, like are we getting better? Or in your work, do you guys go home at night and go, man, we're going to hell in a handbasket? What's the emotion that comes from your work?
I think it's somewhere in the middle of my quote-unquote realistic view of it is there's a lot of vulnerabilities out there, and because our fundamental base of computing, just from the chip level of combined instruction and data, everything from the fundamental level on up is kind of screwed up. But do we have hope for the future? I think so, and I'd like to think that security is now part of a key design of most everything, from chips to programming languages and application frameworks. So I think things are getting better, but not as fast as I would like. It's more glacial paced than just anything else.
Anything I didn't ask you that we should be covering?
I don't know.
We go through everything? I don't remember if we missed anything. You got such a cool company. I love the way your culture's set up. You guys are really good at what you do. I assume if people are interested, is the website kind of the place to go?
Yeah, sure. Includesecurity.com. So we specifically do software and hardware security assessments.
Yeah.
So we don't come to us for your physical pen test and your network pen test and your wireless pen test. Come to us when you have software and you want to see all of the vulnerabilities in it.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, thank you so much for coming by.
No problem.
Really
Thanks for having me.
wonderful to see you.
Absolutely.
And we will see you next time.